Hello, my lovely friends. It's Emma here, just a girl who loves Elvis. I hope wherever you are in the world today, you're feeling calm, safe, and surrounded by a little bit of love. Because today's episode is not going to be dramatic or heavy. Today we're going to talk about something very simple, something very gentle, and something very true. Today I want to talk about kindness. Not the kind of kindness that makes headlines. Not the kind that's done for applause or attention. But the quiet, sincere, deeply human kind of kindness. The kind that comes from the heart. Because when I think about Elvis Presley, that is the quality that always comes back to me. Not the jumpsuits, not the screaming crowds, not the fame or the fortune. But the kindness. The softness in his eyes, the warmth in his voice, the way people said he made them feel safe. And if you listen closely to the stories people tell about him, there's one theme that appears again and again. He didn't just sing love, he gave it. The most beautiful things about Elvis's kindness is that so much of it happened quietly. Not on stage, not in front of cameras, not for publicity, but behind the scenes, late at night, in private conversations, in moments when no one was watching. And I think that tells you something very important. Because it's easy to be kind when people are applauding you. It's easy to be generous when there's a spotlight. But true kindness, the kind that comes from the soul, happens when no one is looking. And Elvis seemed to understand that instinctively. He didn't need an audience to be generous. He didn't need praise to help someone. He just did it, because that was who he was. I often think about where that kindness came from. People aren't just born famous. They aren't just born into the world as legends. They start somewhere. And Elvis started in Tupelo. A small house, a modest life, a family that didn't have much in terms of money. But they had love. A very close bond between a mother, a father and their son. And when you grow up in a home like that, you learn to appreciate the small things. You learn to value people. You learn what it means to struggle and to go without. And sometimes, when someone grows up that way, they carry a quiet promise inside themselves. A promise if they ever had more than enough, they will share it. And I think Elvis carried that promise with him all of his life. There are so many stories about Elvis giving. Giving money, giving gifts, giving help. But what stands out is not the size of the gift. It's the instinct behind it. People often said Elvis simply couldn't walk past someone in need. If he saw a problem, he wanted to fix it. If he saw someone struggling, he wanted to help. And it didn't matter if that person was a close friend, a staff member, a stranger, or someone he'd only just met. He didn't measure kindness. He didn't calculate it. He felt it. And then he acted. There's a story I've always loved. Not because it's flashy or dramatic, but because it says so much about his heart. A woman once mentioned, almost in passing, that she was having trouble with her car. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just a quiet comment about a daily struggle. And Elvis listened. He didn't make a big speech. He didn't say, "Oh, that's a shame." He simply made a phone call. And later, that woman found herself standing in front of a brand new car. Because Elvis had brought it for her. Now, to some people, that might sound like a grand gesture. But to Elvis, it wasn't. To him, it was just helping someone who needed it. That was his instinct. Not hesitation, not calculation, just kindness. I think some of the most touching stories about Elvis came from hospitals, because hospitals are places where people are vulnerable, places where fear and pain often live side by side. And again, there are stories of Elvis showing up, quietly, sometimes unannounced, not for publicity, not for headlines, but just to sit with someone, to talk, to sing, to lift someone's spirits. And can you imagine being a patient, feeling frightened or alone, and suddenly Elvis Presley walks into the room? Not as a superstar, not as a legend, but as a kind, gentle man who just wants to make you smile. And that kind of moment stays with a person forever. It wasn't just the big gestures. It was the way he treated people day to day. People who worked for him often said the same thing. He didn't act like he was above them. He talked to them. He laughed with them. He listened to them. He didn't just see employees. He saw human beings. And that kind of respect, that kind of warmth, can be more powerful than any gift. Because sometimes being seen and valued is the greatest gift of all. I always think there's a softness in many of the stories about Elvis, a gentleness. He wasn't hard or cold. He was emotional. He was spiritual. He felt things deeply. He cried during gospel songs. He talked about God. He searched for meaning. And people who feel things deeply often feel other people's pain too. They can't just turn away from it. They carry it with them. And maybe that was part of Elvis's burden, but I also think it was part of his beauty. Not all kindness looks like buying cars or paying bills. Sometimes it's much quieter than that. Sometimes it's a conversation at the right moment, a kind word, a smile, a hand on someone's shoulder. And there are countless stories of Elvis doing just that. Talking to someone who felt invisible, listening to someone who needed to be heard, making a joke to lighten the mood. They may be little moments, but little moments can change your life. And of course, there was his voice, because Elvis didn't just show kindness in his actions. He showed it in his music. When he sang a gospel song, there was sincerity there, a tenderness, a feeling that he wasn't just performing, he was praying. And that voice has comforted millions of people. People who are lonely, heartbroken, grieving, afraid, or just in need of a little light. His voice became a kind of shelter, a safe place. And I think that is a very special kind of kindness. But sometimes having a big heart comes at a cost. Because when you care deeply about people, you also feel their pain. You feel their expectations, their needs, their disappointments. And Elvis carried the weight of many people's lives. Families, friends, staff, and fans. He wanted to help everyone. And that's a heavy burden for one person to carry. But he carried it anyway. Because kindness, to him, wasn't optional. It was who he was. So what was the kindest thing Elvis ever did? Was it the cars, the money, the hospital visits? Maybe. But I don't think the kindest thing he ever did was one single action. I think the kindest thing he ever did was simply the way he lived. The way he gave love again and again. The way he treated people with warmth. The way he never lost that soft heart from the little house in Tupelo. And that to me is real kindness. Not one gesture, but a lifetime of them. When we talk about Elvis's kindness, it isn't just about looking back. It's also about looking at ourselves. Because maybe the greatest tribute we can give to someone like Elvis is to carry a little of that kindness forward to be patient with someone, help someone quietly, offer a kind word, or listen when someone needs it. Small things. But small things matter, and I think that's how kindness lives on. Sometimes when I listen to Elvis singing a gospel song, I don't just hear a voice. I hear a spirit, a gentle, searching, loving spirit. And it reminds me that behind the fame, behind the headlines, there was a man who loved deeply, who gave generously, who felt things intensely. A man with a kind heart. And that is the Elvis I choose to remember. So today, my lovely friends, I hope this episode felt gentle. I hope it felt warm. And I hope it reminded you that kindness never disappears. It echoes through stories, through music, through the way we treat each other. And maybe, somewhere out there today, someone will hear an Elvis song and feel a little less alone. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep a little Elvis kindness in your heart, because that is what Elvis would have wanted. I'll see you again soon.